What's up, and welcome to the Non-Fungible Creator Show. This is your host, Non-Fungible TC, Non-Fungible Today, and Non-Fungible Tomorrow. And today we are so happy to have Metaverse videographer Paradoxx with us today. And thank you so much for being here, Paradoxx. We did a recording a few days ago. It didn't work, but you decided to come here again. But yeah, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, man. Good to be here. I know the pain. It's part of the trials and tribulations of being a videographer in any scene is that there are technical hiccups. So 100% get it. It's totally cool, man.
Yeah, and because the reason why I really wanted to have the show with you is that you have been doing a lot of documentaries in the metaverse, and you have been featuring other people, but you are actually the hero behind the scene. You are the one who is holding that camera and featuring different people. So I hope that this show could be a place, just for you to be you and to share your story. So can you tell us more about yourself and about your background?
Sure, no doubt. So hey guys, I am Paradoxx. I generally go around calling myself the Metaverse videographer, or I've been called the Metaverse lensman by Troubadour. But yeah, so shall I start with a little bit about my background? Is that a good start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess before I start talking about the Metaverse kind of aspect of what I do, let's give you a little bit of background about what I've done in the past. So I come from a television and film background here in the UK. I've done all sorts. I went to university to study television. I actually wish I'd done film, but the point is there's way more jobs in TV in the UK. I've done everything from TV studio shows, ITV, BBC, Sky, that kind of thing, which are all channels over here in the UK. I've worked in kit houses, so television and film, broadcast and film kit houses. So I get to know a lot of the kit very well, how to maintain it, all that kind of thing. And then I've worked on sort of short films, feature films, mostly kind of like low level stuff for the feature films, because I just dabbled in that. But I've spent a long time working as like a freelance cameraman. And that's everything from shooting B-roll for TV shows to what else have I done? Let's think general videography. So I've worked on filming Broadway shows, and also weddings. Absolutely everything. I've done like medium shows, kind of psychics kind of thing. There's absolutely tons I've done. So that's all before I even got into the metaverse. I guess the job I had before I started the metaverse, like my full-time job for about 4 years, was working for a company in the UK in rural England that worked doing aerial photography and video, and also time-lapse. So that's drone work, shooting footage in helicopters, and then also like setting up cameras to shoot building sites, like constructions over like several years. So yeah, and I kind of my plan was to kind of bring all of those kind of skills to the metaverse, and that's kind of where we are today, and that's kind of my background.
Yeah, so you were talking about you work in time lapse and aerial photography. I mean, videography as well. And it actually brings us to our next question, which is what is your Web 3.0 story? How did you get into NFTs and also the metaverse?
I fell into it pretty much by accident, which is possibly the same for like a lot of people. I have a good friend called Metageist, who is a pretty prolific VR artist in the metaverse, and he listens to like a shit ton of podcasts. And all sorts, he's a full-time artist and was a full-time artist before he came into the metaverse. And essentially, he discovered the metaverse and crypto art via the Matthew and Rizzle podcast, which is the same guys that run a weekly event in the metaverse. And essentially, he sent me an email. I was like, dude, you have to check out this crypto art thing. And I was like, okay, I had a look. And then eventually he came around my house, because he doesn't live terribly far away from me in the UK. And it took me ages. It took me absolutely ages to get my head around crypto art. Getting the idea of copyright and everything that goes with the blockchain. And the point is, I dabbled in crypto in like 2017. you know, around about the time like with the ICO scams and like the market dropping, I normally liken it to the Wolf on Wall Street, where the fact that I got into crypto and then on the same day, you know, I spent a load of money and then on the same day the markets crashed like big time. So that's how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I fell into crypto art with Metageist. I started learning, and I started creating art with a friend of mine called Siege, which I'll hopefully get a link to his Twitter in the description. So I'm pretty big on collaboration. It's something I've always done, and I will always do, and it's something I put a lot of stock in. I'm actually a twin in real life, and my brother and I, we do a lot of video work together. He's also a videographer in the metaverse. He's called Chainscribe. So yeah, but myself and this guy called Siege, who is an American artist, we started doing art and creating it for SuperRare. And if you look on screen, that's kind of what you're seeing. The way we do it is I would go out and shoot with this scene you're looking at now. This is like about 5 o'clock in the morning in rural England. And I'm shooting a time lapse, and you can see like the mist coming up from the ground. And then Siege would go away. I would give him that footage. Siege would then go away and create some of the art. And you can see there's kind of aliens in the background. He would then give me all the different layers, and I would animate them and stuff. And then together we would, as a collaboration, we would make these pieces. So that's kind of a good example of like how I brought some of my old skills, like time lapse and stuff, to the metaverse. But that's kind of how I began. I sold a decent amount of art, and I did quite well. But I could have continued being a crypto artist. But having a background in television, film, and stuff, I just found myself drawn to doing video work, and that's the direction I went, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since in the scene, really.
Yeah, which actually goes to our next question, and that is, how do you get started with producing content for the metaverse? Like, what tools do you use, or did you just do this out of the blue, or did someone invite you to do this?
So, I mean, again, this goes back to even before I was making content in the metaverse. I've always been a fan of something called machinima, which is essentially making video content from like a game engine. So I remember when I was probably about 14 years old, and my friends invited, a couple of my friends in different classes invited me to the house, and they were essentially playing the game Halo. I think it was probably might have been Halo 2. And what they would do is that they would sort of act in the game, and they would have they'd put a tape, like a proper VCR tape, in the box, in the machine, and then they would record like a take the same way you would like with an actor. And then if it didn't work, they would literally rewind the tape and record over it. And that, yeah, I mean, it's changed how things have happened since, in terms of technically how you do it, but the concept is still the same, right? And yeah, I mean, I did that for years with my friends. Then I went on to explore and play around with different game engines. Like there's GTA 5, Grand Theft Auto 5 has a really good like game engine where you can like a recording where you can change all the camera angles, the depth of field, all of these. So I've been playing like nothing to do with work, just playing in the metaverse in games for a long time. So then I guess when I kind of came into the metaverse, it's exactly the same. The tools are fairly limited in what you get. So for instance, what you're looking at now is CryptoVoxels. CryptoVoxels is probably one of the more advanced when it comes to camera tools. And that's not saying a lot. For instance, you've got controller support in CryptoVoxels, so you can get these nice slow moves like left and right, as you can see here. But other metaverses don't have anything nearly the same. You can literally move using the arrow keys or the WASD keys, and you have one set speed. So in the future, I'm looking forward to the metaverse having much more in-depth recording and camera tools, really. But yeah. How's that?
And I remember talking to you, and you said you were actually developing some camera tools for another metaverse called Mona as well at the same time.
Yes, so Mona is a great platform. Mona Gallery. They use Unity, and to kind of as their base kind of engine, and it's all web based. That's why it's pretty impressive. Mona is quite a small team, but they are super open to ideas, and I've been talking with them about kind of introducing like just extra things to help, really. So they've started bringing things like bloom, and I think they've brought in depth of field, but they've at least brought in like motion blur, and I think they're going to bring in like a fly mode so that you can have much more. You can be much more creative, and eventually, I want them to be bringing in loads of these extra tools. And yeah, so I'm a big believer in Mona because they will implement some of the things I want. So yeah, so definitely check out Mona Gallery, and I'll give you guys a link as well, so Tim can put that in the description.
Yeah. So how do you get into creating content for the metaverse? Like, did someone invited you, or
so
what happened?
Because I've always been a big fan of collaboration, I guess instinctually was drawn to various different communities. And so I led a couple of what we called gallery hops for a project called the Hive Muse in Crypto Voxels. And the idea behind that was that we would run, it was a community, we'd run different events, kind of like weekly or monthly, something like that. And when I say like a gallery hop, it was kind of like a pub crawl, but for different galleries, because there's so many galleries in the metaverse. I eventually joined a team called the WIP Meet Up, and the WIP Meet Up is something that's very close to my heart. It's very, very important to me. So the WIP Meet Up is a weekly meetup that has been going for over 2 years now in the metaverse. Every week, week in, week out, we have different speakers each week. There's so much alpha at the WIP. So, for instance, projects like Axie Infinity and CryptoKitties and Art Blocks, they've all spoken at the WIP. So it's a great place to kind of learn. It's very newbie friendly. There's different wearable drops and stuff like that. So if you are new to the metaverse, definitely check out the WIP Meetup, which you can see on screen now, which is great. But so I joined as their kind of resident videographer, as you would. And I just started creating videos for them every week because it's what I wanted to do, and I love the community, So this was before I was, I guess, making any money in the metaverse. It was still a hobby at that point. I guess, but then when people started to know my name as part of the crew, and seeing that I was making content consistently and to quite a high quality, I started getting a lot of requests for work, and I started taking these slowly but surely. And then I got offered different like bigger projects. So I worked on a project called the B20 project for Metaverse. That was brilliant. That was I won't go into details, but it was all to do with Beeple and 20 of his big drops. And that was kind of my first big break in the metaverse scene. And I, stumbled upon it completely by accident. And I got that job because I was one of the guys in the WIP crew was a guy called Tubador, and Tubador is now known to be the steward of Metaverse. And Metaverse have gone on to do amazing things. They've done massive IRL events and some really cool projects in the metaverse. But yes, and I wouldn't have got that job if I wasn't in the WIP crew and I wasn't consistent already. So it's something I always go back to. Community is really important in the metaverse. And it's the same as real life, networking, The main thing I would say, though, is that I never felt like I was networking. I was just talking to cool people, for months on end. Let's have a look. What's the next question? I don't want to over talk over your next question.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're actually answering the next question, and the question is like, as someone who has been in this space for some time, what would be your advice to new videographers trying to get into the metaverse?
Totally, yeah. So as I said, networking is really important, but it's not like the real world networking. My brother came. So I recently got my brother a job in the metaverse, which was an awesome feeling, by the way, to get him out of his IRL job. And it took him a little while because it's a bit of a culture shock. Because in the
Mm-hmm.
metaverse, everyone is so casual, and if you wear a suit, it's almost frowned upon. So it's a bit of a culture shock. But that's guess why I didn't feel like I was networking. It was just talking to cool people.
Mm.
Yeah. So advice is grow your network. Make as many friends as possible. I've had so many jobs come out of the blue from people that I've chatted to and hadn't even considered that they want video work. But then they'll be like, "Oh, dude, I'm working on this project with somebody else, and they want a video guy, and I brought your name up, and it's perfect." But I guess before you even start networking, what you really should do as a videographer is learn the tools. So jump in as many of the metaverse worlds as you can, and learn. I mean, for instance, CryptoVoxels or Sandbox or Somnium Space, they all have different camera controls. Most of the time, it's really basic controls, but get used to it. Figure out the technical side, how to screen record, and just practice. Because you might be the best videographer in the world in real life, but if you've not picked up a virtual camera before, you're going to be rusty. So jump in world, practice. Have fun, make a load of little videos just for yourself or for community, and then grow your network. That's probably the best thing I can suggest, really, for new videographers in the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that advice. And as someone who came from a traditional television and film background and are now entering into the metaverse and producing content, what would you say is the main difference, compared to real life? Like, what is the main difference filming in the metaverse, and what is the main difference filming in real life?
The main difference is that you can wear pajamas to work in the metaverse. No, so I mean, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. I'll say that. I mean, if you've got a good computer, that's pretty much all you need, which is wonderful. But yeah, I guess the main difference right now is that you have limited controls in the metaverse to what you can do in the real life. So you're forced to be more creative, which is good, because also it does help that if you have limited tools, then you as long as you're creative, it's hard to say. It's sort of like saying your palette as an artist. You have a limited amount of colors, so I guess there's less to think about in a way. But I mean, some of the good things, the positives of being in the metaverse is that in some of the metaverses you can fly, for instance. So you can get all these kind of creative shots that you would normally do with like a drone or a helicopter. And you don't have to worry about safety. Like in CryptoVoxels, you can fly through people or even fly right above their head. That's all safety stuff you just don't need to think about, which is wonderful. But yeah, so yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, definitely. Wearing a pajamas to work is a dream come true to some people.
Yes, it is indeed.
And so a lot of people who who do not know about the metaverse, right? The first thing that comes to mind is, oh, it's a VR game. Everything is just a game. You can't really make a living in the metaverse. But from time to time, people on this who came to this channel have proven them wrong. People are selling NFTs in the metaverse, building on the metaverse. And so, what would be your response to people who said jobs in the metaverse is not real, is not sustainable?
Oh, it's 100% real. And I've never understood that, to be honest, because it's the same in real life that that people are running projects. There's big companies in the metaverse. Everybody wants video. So I've kind of always said that the crypto artists are rock stars in the scene, right? But the thing about being a crypto artist is that you may be the best thing today, but tomorrow you may not be the best thing. I don't get me wrong. There's a lot of artists that will stay trending forever because they're amazing. But some artists might have, a couple of successful months and then it kind of dries up, which is a real shame. But that is kind of the risks of being an artist. But for a videographer, video will never die. So whilst you being a videographer, to make that choice, whilst you may not be the rock star of the scene, you will always have work. As long as you can kind of build that network. So in terms of like different types, should I talk a little bit of like different types of work you can get?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. So there is always contract work, you know, just what's the word? Making a video for a company that they want you to make. There's always that kind of work. I get those requests all the time. Or you could work directly for a company. For instance, like I get various different job offers from people because they want your skills dedicated. You know, they don't want you to just be a contractor for 1 or 2 videos. They want your work. So you know, show your worth. Show that a decent kind of catalog of videos, like a show reel in the metaverse, is always a good idea. And then approach companies. You know, approach some of these bigger companies. Like there's a lot of studios popping up now in the metaverse, and yeah, so you'll always get a job that way. Or there's say that the route that I went down. And again, this wasn't planned at all. Is I was offered like something called a fellowship grant from the guys over at Metaverse, which are, funnily enough, the guys that offered me that first video work for the B20 project. And effectively, the way that works is it's like a monthly stipend for a 12-month period. And I had to go through like a whole pitching process and give all my ideas, and it was all very formal. But you know, long story short is I got that funding, so I'm now being funded to create pretty much whatever I want in the metaverse, as long as it's kind of true stories from the metaverse. You know, because it was actually Tubador, who is the steward of Metaverse, that initially he said that the most important thing that I'm doing is I'm documenting the Metaverse, and it's something that it's a saying that I've been using ever since, because it's true. And somebody else said to me recently that the work they think I'm doing is really important because I'm capturing time capsules of the metaverse, because there's not that this kind of early scene, this early metaverse stuff is going to eventually get swallowed up. It'll be gone, and we won't see it the same way that we see it now. So it'll be really interesting in the future for people to go, okay, what was the metaverse like then? And then you have some footage, which is what I'm doing, to kind of show it. You know, it's completely a time capsule. But back to the original question of different types of work. So yeah, contract work, or find a different opportunity like I've got, like some arts funding, or you know, or work directly for a company. Now is the perfect time to start working for another company. And I will say you can normally get higher wages than you would in the real world, because there are not that many videographers. If you are a videographer and you're thinking about it, I always used to joke that I was the best by default. And by that, I simply mean that there really was not any other videographers. So I put it down to similar to like the early days of YouTube. As long as you're good, you could do very well on YouTube. This is before the millions of people that started using it. There was only a few decent creators. So we're in a gold mine, a gold rush time for videographers. So really, you don't want to miss out. You want to get involved now and make the most of it.
Absolutely. And what I wanted to add is that you were saying that each artist, each NFT creator, there's a moment for them to shine, right? And then because crypto moves so fast, different trends come in and out, there is a chance that they no longer shine as bright as before. But for you, what you're doing is, because you're documenting all of this on video, basically you create a database, you create a time capsule, as you said, where you could preserve the moment where these creators shine.
Entirely, yeah.
And I think that's...
No, go ahead, sorry.
And I think that's very important. And yeah, please go ahead. What were you trying to say?
Just that you're right. That, I mean, as I said, crypto artists are seen as rock stars, and videography is one of those things where you can make the best video in the world, right? And it could take you 100 hours, right? But people will be like, yeah, cool. Whereas, you know, a crypto artist could spend half an hour on a piece, and it will blow people's minds. And it's because they're, like I said, they're the rock stars. And great, that's good for them. It's great that artists in general can have their time to shine, rather than being, you know, the whole starving artist thing. But videographers, so it is less glamorous, but it's much more steady is the way. So it's like a business decision. That's kind of what the route I chose to go down. and it's going pretty well. So yeah, I would certainly suggest people to give it a try.
Absolutely, and it's as you said, I think it's an indispensable part of this culture, having videographers to document things like this. And I have to say, for those of you who are watching, if you've never been to the Metanauts YouTube channel, go check it out. These documentaries are really interesting and it's really high quality as we're showing here. And before we wrap up, Paradoxx, is there anything you would like to share?
Yeah, so I'll just talk a little bit about what you were just saying. So as part of the Metaverse Fellowship Grant, and I was saying that I create videos, I have created a YouTube channel called Metanauts, which you should see in the description below. Metanauts is like we run like interview series of like different crypto artists and builders in the scene. But more recently, I've launched a show called Metaverse Cribs, and if you've ever seen MTV Cribs, so back in the 90s, you'll know exactly how it goes. We have builders in the scene or parcel owners showing us around their awesome builds. And episodes are normally 3 to 5 minutes long, something like that. And we just show some really amazing stuff. Like you can see on screen now, this is the George from Crypto Motors or the Voxel Architects. And this was a contract for the whale community, I believe, the Chinese whale community, and he talks about that. So yeah, and then in each episode we go to several different parcels. This particular episode, there's 3 or 4 different metaverses, so it's not all just crypto voxels. There's also Sandbox, Decentraland. There's loads. So that's what I'm working on right now. Certainly check it out. Hopefully there's a link in the description, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for being here with us, Paradoxx. And I have to say your work is just, it blew my mind, like how you could integrate traditional filmmaking skills and video editing skills into, the metaverse. And thank you so much for sharing with our viewers that, metaverse jobs are real. They aren't just a fad. It is the same as being in real life, but it is even more sought after because we are so early.
Totally, yeah, and I definitely encourage anyone to give it a go. It's 100% real. You can make a lot of money, so just go for it.
And you can wear pajamas to work. That's the main point.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main selling point. Yeah.
So thank you so much. This concludes the end of our show. Thank you for being here, Paradoxx. For those of you who like our content, or if you like what you're seeing, go and support Paradoxx on his YouTube channel. All the links will be in the description below. Remember to press like and subscribe so more people could know more about the metaverse and that there are real jobs in the metaverse. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much, Paradoxx. Bye bye.
My pleasure. Bye bye.